Would you rather be played in a movie by Danny DeVito or Danny Trejo?
That's a great question.
That is a good one.
I probably am gonna go with Danny DeVito.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Like current Danny DeVito? Or like Taxi, like... Because he's... I mean, I guess he's always been Danny DeVito,
Yeah.
but...
I don't.
There was a stint there in the 80s that he just did stupid movies. I mean, like Twins and Throw Mama from a Train and...
Yeah. I got to introduce somebody to Twins.
Nice.
Because one of the people I work with is just a small child. So she was not born when Twins came out. And so I was like, yeah.
That's early
this-
90s, right?
Yeah.
That's early
Like,
90s.
And I'm like, I think I can recommend it, but it's hard to remember what the 90s thought was okay to put into movies and if Twins was one of those that I could recommend. And then the other day, because we have such a mix of ages and generations on our team, somebody was talking about the kindergartner cop. It's not a tumor.
Right.
And I was like, you don't know that one either, do you? And she's like, not a clue. So, who is your daddy and what does he do?
Things I've said too many times. It's not a tumor.
It's not a tumor. Welcome to, well, yeah, thanks you guys for listening. Welcome to the Unbroken Ground. This is another conversation with Jim. Obviously, we're off to a flying start of crazy nothingness. But if you are from Jim and I's generation, then you totally know what those movies are. And if you're not, I'm sorry, you can go look them up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Where you're going to find them.
Yeah, YouTube probably. The full thing's probably on YouTube right now.
YouTube. Yeah.
I think I'm going to go with Danny DeVito just because I think that he's more of a comedy actor, and I think whoever's going to play me, it's going to be a comedy.
That's true.
Don't think I'm going to do the act like Danny Trejo is much more of like an action. Like he also has like,
but he is funny.
Yeah, he is too.
He'll kill people, but
yeah,
he's funny.
So that's probably
all right.
It's probably not me. I'm just funny.
Well, I'm not Danny Trejo either, but I will appreciate.
I think it would be harder
when he's telling my story.
Yeah.
He won't be chopping down the tree with a chainsaw.
No, with a machete.
He will be macheting that thing.
I mean, I would just say that it would be very hard, Jim, for you to be portrayed as Danny DeVito, who's a short, rounder dude.
Yeah, I mean, I see.
So I think that you it'd be hard for as good of an actor as Danny is. It'd be hard, I think, to really lean on him and to do that. So that's why I would say, for me, I'm a shorter, rounder dude. So I think Danny DeVito would probably be the person that, between the two, probably would choose. So this is actually less funny and more serious.
Oh, switching gears.
But here's a question I looked up. Best questions. This is
best questions ever, huh?
Yeah.
Is that the Google heading?
It's I think from Cosmopolitan.
Oh, all right.
So this is gonna be so good. Who is your dream dinner guest, and what are you cooking for them?
Oh, I ask this all the time.
Okay, nice.
Who would you have dinner with? Anybody in all of history? I mean, what would you be eating?
Yeah.
Is that what we asked? Is that what you just asked me?
Well, kind of.
I just reinterpreted the question in my head.
Right.
That's what I do.
But it was more of a. It's like you're preparing a meal, not just like, because you can take your version of the question and be like, well,
Okay.
we're all gonna go to Chick-fil-A.
Right.
But this is like you're inviting somebody and you're personally gonna see to preparing a meal for them. And so,
Okay.
what would you cook? What would you hope?
Who am I inviting?
Who you're inviting? What are you cooking for?
And what am I cooking for?
Yeah.
That is a great question that takes a lot of thought. I have no idea.
You ask people this all the time. And you don't have an answer for your own question.
That is very true. I have no idea who. Currently, I have no idea who I would invite to have.
Oh man. Well, I think for me, I'm going to say someone who just passed away recently because I would like just to sit down and talk with them just because I've read so much and heard them speak. And that's Tony Campolo. He has always been kind of a hero, and as far as following Jesus and somebody who has kind of a different take on some things. And I didn't know this, but the place that I'm getting my master's degree from right now, actually, that's where he was a professor at the seminary there. And so he passed away, I think, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. But there's just one, so many of the great stories, but the one that that sticks with me and I just love it, is he was in Hawaii and I think it was, no, not Hawaii, sorry. He was in, I'll probably tell it wrong, probably tell the story wrong, which is great. This is good podcasting right here.
Yeah.
He was in a foreign country. I think he was in like South Korea or...
if you want facts, you come here.
Yeah, this is where you come for the facts. Maybe he was Hawaii. He was in Hawaii. He was in kind of the seedy place. He was looking for... I think he was up late, and he was looking for a diner to have some breakfast in because of the time change. And he was there, and... some women of the night came in and they were talking with each other, and one of them was like, yeah, tomorrow's my birthday, but nobody cares. And so he hatched this plan that he was going to care, and so he actually had a cake made and enlisted the restaurant owner, and they all decorated for this person that just most of the civilized or world wouldn't care for, to take care for, and he just used that as his example of like, this is what Jesus would do. This is what so he got to the owner of the restaurant was like, how come you're this way? And he goes, well, it's because I work at a church because I follow Jesus, and he goes, I don't believe you, because if you really did that, then I would go to that church. Like, if that's really what your church was about, I would be there. Mm-hmm. And so just a great story, and that's better in his telling. He lived it, so he's much better at it. Yeah, but so I'd love to just pick his brain, just sit down with him. I think I would cook, man. What would I cook? I think that I would kind of a go-to meal, maybe like pancakes. We could do some pancakes or something.
Okay,
that would be fun.
All right.
So that's my choice. I'm gonna make breakfast. Tony Campolo.
Okay.
Breakfast.
You're gonna go a Christian theologian hero guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I think that's what made it hard for the question. Do I go personal? Do I go... Man, I don't... I think going in your same vein, I would call Timothy Keller back from the dead.
Yeah.
Because of similar reasons. Not the same story or whatever, but I read...
So he has the story. He was in this diner.
He was at his church, and his people came in, and they said they just didn't care. Anyway, no, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've read a lot of Timothy Keller. I've read, and what keeps me reading things and listening to things that he's done is, I don't know, just his way of blending philosophy and psychology and theology and making it normal. I mean, making it just sound understandable. So I think I'm going to take a page from your theology crew, and I would go Timothy Keller. What would I have? We're making hamburgers on the grill. And we're going to do a hamburger bar. So, like, I want to know what he puts on his hamburger. Does he put bacon on it? Does he put cheese on it? Does he put avocado? Is he weirdo? Put avocados on it?
Is that the line? If you have avocados, you're a weirdo. If you don't, you're not.
I mean, weird is good too. I like
All
avocados on my whatever. It doesn't matter. Fried egg. I mean, it's all good. It's all good. I like all that.
Okay.
But just keeping with the theme of.
Yeah.
Just because there's too many people. How many? I mean, I think the hard part of that question is how. Yeah. What conversation do you want to have for a couple hours?
Yeah.
Like, if it has to be a living person, I don't know who this person would be, but because my world doesn't rub up against, like, billionaires very often, I'd like to just have a conversation. Like, how normal are you? Kind of. Like, just have a dinner.
Do they put avocados on their burgers?
I'm sure. I'm sure they do. I don't even think they consider it a burger if it doesn't have avocado on it.
Get out of here with your non-avocado burger, you non-billionaire.
See, that's my question. Like,
yeah.
I'm sure there's like billionaires that are absolutely normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, I just want to have a conversation with them because we hear too much about the weird ones.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to know about the weird ones.
If you had to change your name, what would you choose?
Jose.
You had that so quick. I feel like you've thought about this too often.
Jose, without a doubt.
Jose
Manuel.
Would you change your last name to Smith?
No, I'd keep it German.
Jones.
Jose Manuel Klingbeil. What is going on with this guy?
Okay. Any particular reason, Jose, is the choice?
Yeah, but none that I'm going to share with you. I mean, if it happens, how would I? I mean, this is already incriminating enough. I don't.
Okay, I won't force you. Force you to incriminate yourself any longer. Oh man. Wow. I think I'm gonna go with Nathaniel.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's for another spiritual reason. So I don't want to over spiritualize you. So
I mean, you can. I don't. Because I'm just running from the FBI. That's all. I mean, I just.
What's a childhood hobby of yours that you'd like to pick back up today?
Piano and Legos.
I hate Legos.
I know you hate Legos. But
I wish I knew how to play piano, though.
Piano is a more consistent, like, man, I wish I knew how to play the piano.
Yeah.
Probably also because nobody in my house plays the piano in my house.
But at one time, do you still have a piano in your house?
Yeah, it's sitting in our living room,
right.
and no one plays it. And so I think that gets me to think, man, somebody should play that. So piano is a more consistent one. Legos are just fun. So.
Yeah. It wasn't. I guess it wasn't a hobby. I wish it was a hobby. I wish I had. I grew up. My dad's a coach, and so we played sports a lot, and we're outside and outdoors. And I do wish that somebody had forced me to stay inside and play piano. I'm sure I would have hated it at the time. It probably would have been hard. I probably wouldn't have caught up on it. But I do wish I knew how to play piano, and I could learn now. But it's a lot. Mm-hmm. So I would love to have that. I think. Oh man, what is a hobby? I collected stamps for a little while. That was kind of fun.
Okay.
That would be. But collecting them from a lot of my grandparents' old letters and stuff like that, like the older stamps, stuff like that. That was pretty fun. I still think collecting baseball cards, football cards, stuff like that. Still, that there's this joy, this nostalgia that I have, and in fact, I even go to there's these things called Teeny Mates. They're little NFL figurines that you can get. You just buy a package of them at Walgreens, and you don't know who you're getting, so it's you have this kind of anticipation that as you open the package, oh, am I going to get the player I want, or is there, who's going to be in there? And that's kind of similar to back in the day. I opened up a pack of cards, just going through there, seeing who's in there, seeing if it's some of your favorite players, seeing if it's a card that you want. I mean that's also one of my, but that hobby, baseball cards, is particularly brings me back to statistics and reading the backs of them and just kind of that joy of discovering who the next card is and sorting through that, reading all that. So
I think all of those are the reasons that I got out of collecting cards. I would open those packs and be like, nope. Well, this is a failed pack. At least I got this terrible gum.
What advice would you give your 12-year-old self?
12?
Yeah.
12. That was 92?
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's about the time Kindergarten Cop came out. It's not a tumor.
Stay away from cell phones.
Ooh. That would have been a confusing piece of advice to get it in 1992.
It would be. Because...
Buy Apple stocks. Buy Apple stocks.
True. Yeah. I mean, those would be nice, too. This Bitcoin thing, just ride it, man.
Yeah. Yeah. The Microsoft Zune's not a thing. Don't even buy one. Oh man. Yeah.
12.
I think
What the heck was I doing at 12? I can't even remember 12.
so. 12 would have been like 7th grade-ish, 6th or 7th grade. That's where you would be. 6th, 7th, somewhere.
Stop trying to be cool
Oh.
by impressing people or whatever. Ironically, life taught me that lesson. So, yeah, when I went to my school, we graduated. There was 8 of us that graduated in my private Christian school, 8th grade, and so 3 of us boys were real close, and then we kind of made fun of another kid. And then high school started happening, and I got into the not Christian crowd, and the kid that we made fun of all the time, he stood in my wedding, because we all hung up together eventually. So life kind of taught me that lesson of just don't try to be cool and go with the crowd and people.
Yeah, I think that this actually connects with something I thought I was having the other day, and so I'll throw it all together. But I think at 12, I think I believe that I one day have following Christ just figured out. That there'd be a day when I just didn't have any more questions. And I think even like it might fall under the impressing people category. I'm not sure. I was never really cool, so I wasn't trying really to impress people because I was cool. But I did grow up in the South where you impress people by how doctrinally sound you believed, and so there definitely was a side of going through, especially like junior high and high school, of like judging people and thinking about. I think at that time I was pretty certain that only Baptists got into heaven, and the Methodist and Church of Christ were they were okay, but probably lost, and the Catholic were right out. Like that was like I was convinced of those things because I mean that's just what we believed. Didn't question it, and I think and then of course anybody who didn't that might make a wrong choice. Was destined for hell and didn't deserve like very much separation out of. And I get like you got to be careful who you're friends with, but like this idea of like, oh, I can't even be near or in a relationship with you. I can't really talk to you because you're part of that crowd or you're part of those people. And I went to a small school too, but I think all of that. I think I didn't learn a whole lot of lessons that reversed a lot of the stuff that I went through from year 12 to year 22 until I experienced year 22 and 23 and 24. And that's when God introduced me to a couple of older Christians who had wrestled through some very painful things in their lives and still wrestled with doubt and still wrestled with big questions about God. And I was kind of like, wow, you guys have been following Jesus for a whole lot longer than I have, and yet here you are, you still have questions, you still have doubts, you still have things that don't go right, don't go the way you want them to. And so it just really changed my perspective on what it meant to follow Jesus. And so I think, if anything, I would tell my 12-year-old self to find like an actual older disciple, like somebody who's been following Jesus for 60 years. And just be like, all right, help me understand what I need to understand, and then be able to, as best I can, just walk through that. But looking back seems so clear. I'm sure at the age of 12 I was not ready for any of that. But that's probably what I would try to go back and do.
Hmm. That
Yeah.
might have been. I might have been suspended for having a rubber band at 12.
Gonna need a little bit more than that to go on. How did you get suspended for having a rubber band?
Well, so that's what I like to tell people. because
Okay.
It sounds ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
So the Christian school that I was at had this
They were
chick.
against rubber products?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, man, there's so many different angles to go at. So, oh man, do I incriminate myself? No.
Not on the record. Allegedly.
So,
Allegedly.
what we figured out to do,
Okay.
because it's a Christian school,
Yes.
and because every Christian school does a Christmas pageant, and it takes forever to do. So us bored kids that have done this pageant a million times, we started folding paper and zinging it at people with our
Okay.
rubber bands, right?
Okay.
And so our teacher finally got fed up with it and was like, if I see anybody with rubber bands, you're losing a chip. Now let me explain the chip.
This is multi-layered.
The disciplinary actions where you got these little red discs that they called chips,
Okay.
and for every disciplinary action, you lost one of those chips.
So you started out with a number of chips at like the
And
beginning
I don't
of the
remember
year.
how many you start with.
Okay.
Well, and it's a weekly thing, I
Oh.
think. Maybe monthly, I don't remember.
Okay.
But so you start out with 2 or 3 chips or whatever that week, and so I had lost all my chips, and I got caught with a rubber band. And so when that happens, you get suspended. So while I tell people I got suspended for having a rubber band, it's really because I was a terrible kid and I didn't follow any of the rules ever. I mean, like I lost my chips. I mean, there were multiple reasons that I got suspended. Anyway.
Okay. I lost.
So maybe I'd tell my 12-year-old kid to keep your dang mouth shut, because my mouth is what tended to get me in trouble a lot.
How? I was just saying, have you learned? Are you pro or anti clapping after a flight lands? Defend your stance.
What?
Are you
I'm
pro?
anti-clapping. I am anti-clapping. I am anti-clapping because they are just doing their stupid job. They can't hear us, especially since since all the security is up. They always have those doors closed. I guarantee they can't hear us in the back at all. Why are we clapping?
Because we landed. Because we landed the plane.
Do not care. That's what
we
they're
made
supposed to do.
We made it. We gotta celebrate.
Supposed to do
we gotta celebrate.
They do that
when you make it, you gotta
99%
celebrate.
of the time.
Yeah, but there's 1% when it doesn't happen. You celebrate the 99.
And when that 1% happens and it doesn't happen and it comes crashing to the ground, skids along, and we have to exit the plane via those big puffy things,
That's when you'll clap.
that's when I'll clap.
But it'll be that impressed slow clap. It won't be like
Yeah, way to go, guys. Way to go. Full pilot eye contact at the entire clap.
I'm just gonna. I'm with joy. I've never clapped after landing,
Okay?
but I think I might from now
You're
on.
gonna start?
I think I think
You got to celebrate.
it would
things.
drive my wife crazy, which is an added bonus.
Okay, that is a bonus. I mean,
That because like we go to a little bit more. Charismatic's not the right word, but a little bit more free church now, and there's definitely people who, after a good sermon point, or after kids read a verse on the stage, people clap.
Okay.
And Kelly's like, that's not needed. We don't need to clap for that.
are you going to clap and stand up? Are you going to be that guy?
I don't think I want to stand.
It's going to go like the first guy up wins.
No, because those guys annoy me. But I will clap.
Indians will beat you every time.
I will.
I think some of them are standing up before we even hit the ground. I don't.
No, because I make fun of those people, so I can't be the stand-up people. Because no matter how quickly you stand up, we still all have to wait for them to taxi
on the same plane.
So no, I'm not. I won't stand, but I might clap. I might cheer even. I might even be like, "Woo! We landed!" Like I'm just maybe. I don't know.
I think you should do that next time you come back to the Midwest.
Okay.
Because I think the Midwest is probably the least cheered for landings. I mean, like, we're going to the Dominican Republic in February. And so I think when we land in the Dominican Republic, I can see people cheering. Coming back in February, I don't see people cheering landing in Chicago in February.
I have a new mission now to convince Rebecca to clap when we land.
Hannah.
Oh, Hannah's going.
I mean, you can convince Rebecca.
Rebecca would be easier to convince, I would think. Hannah, I don't know. She's a little bit more like you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dang. Maybe I'll see what I can do.
I mean, you can try.
We'll see.
She is a teenager, so any kind of focus on her specifically is embarrassing. So, good luck.
What's a major hair change that you'd make if you were a little more brave right now?
A major hair change. That's an interesting one.
I'd go full mohawk. I would definitely do a full shave the sides with the mohawk in the middle. Okay. Maybe even super glue like a real punk rocker. Like I would.
All right, you go all in.
Yeah. If I was a little more brave right now.
Jimmy Neutron kind of.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I guess he didn't have a mohawk.
No.
But he definitely had that blonde hair sticking straight out.
Yeah. Oh, you mean Johnny Bravo?
Johnny Bravo.
Yeah. Jimmy Neutron also had hair that stuck up, but he wasn't blonde. He was brown. You gotta get your fictional cartoon characters straight.
Whatever. They're all cartoon kids. I was gonna say cornrow my chest hair.
Cornrow your chest.
But I don't think I have enough chest hair to do that.
Oh boy. I'm glad you're not brave.
I mean, you wouldn't know.
I have a feeling you'd show me.
Yeah,
if you cornrowed your chest hair,
I guarantee
you would proudly show me.
I would show as many people as possible.
Oh boy. Here we go. This one is going to go really well or really poorly.
Okay.
Can you describe our mutual friends as types of food?
Interesting.
Uh-huh. uh,
Hmm. Interesting. I don't know. Maybe I gotta picture somebody and then describing a food, and you gotta guess.
all right. Okay.
Or
All
we do
right.
it the other way around. Do you have somebody in mind and a food that goes along with them?
I mean, the one that jumps to my mind, and what I would do, I would go with, uh, let's say Travis, and I would say,
Well, I was gonna get. Okay.
do you want me to go?
All right. Well,
what food?
okay. Just
Okay,
keep going.
All right.
What would Travis
all right.
be?
I'm gonna give him like he would be Pop Rocks.
Pop Rocks.
Yeah.
Okay. I can see it.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
yeah. Okay, you want to go food and then guess?
I was gonna say describe your food.
Okay. Okay. Ooh, mutual. That was a hard one because I could say this and I feel like that could fit both a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plain white toast.
Plain.
Not even buttered. Just
Just toast, huh?
Plain
Just-
white toast.
Plain dry white toast. Hmm. Well, I feel like it's insulting, but
Well, I don't. I mean, yeah. Who are you gonna insult? Like,
I mean, at the risk of never going back to camp, I'm gonna say Graham is plain.
yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
any way you bite into it is wrong.
I mean, he has a level of just no excitement
Mm.
about him.
Yeah.
That
Even keel.
Yeah. He's got an even temper. So
Okay. How
All right.
about so
all right.
okay,
Man.
boneless, spicy chicken wings.
The spicy chicken.
And not just like kind of spicy, like slap your face kind of spice.
Oh, mutual.
Hmm. Now we're just doing this for you and me because nobody else knows these people.
I'm trying to think about who would be
I know.
spicy.
As soon as you think of a name, you're like, I don't want to say that out loud.
Is he a former employer?
No.
No. Oh,
No.
I got nothing
Mm.
for boneless, spicy. Huh. All right, I give up. Who's your
Give up.
Yeah.
Okay, you caught me. I was just gonna say yes to anybody. But I mean, I think it fits my oldest
Okay.
pretty well because
Okay.
like just bone-in wings would be gross to her, so boneless,
Mm,
and then
spicy.
spicy as in
Attitude.
just attitude of like.
She doesn't really give me, so that's hard because she says, I don't get the attitude that you do.
True. Kind of.
Yeah.
You still get the I'm wrong or
Yeah.
you're wrong attitude.
Well, that's because I am. Yeah. Popcorn. Talking about me, aren't you?
Buttered popcorn?
Buttered
Caramel
popcorn.
caramel popcorn?
Chicago style popcorn.
I don't know what Chicago. What is that?
You don't know Chicago style? It's the mix of caramel and cheese.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't like cheese popcorn, so my wife likes cheese popcorn.
I'm less a fan of the caramel. So.
I just like butter and salt, to be honest. I mean, caramel popcorn is alright, but butter and salt is the way to go.
What makes you laugh no matter the mood you're in?
Oh. Maybe I'm burnt toast. Or
It was plain white toast.
Plain white toast. Maybe that's me, because I don't know. What makes it? I don't know. I'm having a hard time thinking about it.
I can tell you mine. I can tell you what mine is for sure. Is any video with like a slapstick, real life humor. So like a baby's walking along the living room floor and a dog flies through and like tackles him like a linebacker.
Okay, yeah.
Like I'm gonna laugh. It doesn't matter if I am in the worst possible mood. If I see that, I'm gonna laugh, and probably loud. Like I'm going to be. It just brings me joy to see. And it could be an adult too. I mean.
Okay. Along the same lines, and I know mine is a little bit more dark.
Yeah.
But really stupid vehicle accidents will always make me laugh. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I get you.
Yeah. That definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely any kind of like physical like somebody trying to. Like the family, I think like the viral videos where like somebody's jumping into like a frozen pond and they just can't break it. They just like smack themselves. Right. Like I'm gonna laugh. I just am, and I hope people are okay. I don't want them to be broken, but it's gonna make me laugh.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Same 100%. Here. I'm not trying to like I don't. That's why I said mine was a little darker because some of those people don't walk away from that, but
yeah.
Some of them you're just like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. All right.
Like the semis that don't care about the low bridges. That's hilarious to me. That's hilarious to me.
All right. Here's a serious question. Here's your serious question.
Okay.
I gave you lots of time to think about this. So you're well prepared.
Oh, yeah, okay. We're prepared. That's us.
Uh-huh.
This is the Prepared Podcast.
So we're at the end of the year. What's one way that you're different now than you were a year ago? Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, I guess, even, you know, cornrow hair, chest hair. And
yeah, well, I'm going to start, I don't know what putting growth hormone on my chest just so I can try that.
Chest hair, man. Hair men's club for chest hair.
Talk to my wife about whatever oil we need. I'm sure there's one. Yeah, so I think one of the big differences between me of this year and me of last year is my desire to be willing to walk with God wherever He's got me going. and to clarify that a little bit more, I mean, I might have said this in previous podcasts, but I've been asking the questions lately that are very similar to my college questions of what is my calling and what does it look like and what am I supposed to be doing, and I don't know. A year ago I kind of had some of those questions, but not to the same. I think the difference would be my willingness to go wherever God has me going this year. Before I had I don't know. I had more of a shrug it off kind of mentality of I think that's just a distraction. I'm going to keep doing what I know how to do. And I think this year is more of a, okay, let's really dive into it. Is that different than this last year? I don't know. How long have I been struggling through that? You know me better than I. Is that different this year?
Well, I think you have. I think you've grown in degrees of what you're willing to, I guess, be open to. So, I think that more so than ever, the questions you ask are more open-ended than they've ever been. And I think that's maybe even just a little bit of midlife. I mean, I think that's where we find ourselves. And that's a product of that. But I think that's something that even over the past year, just the ability to say, all right, I think I had some things figured out, but now I feel like I'm back to asking those same questions, and then even having maybe a broader ability to say, okay, well, what is the answer, and where would I find the answer than I think you've ever had.
Okay, so no, that thought isn't new this year then. Is that what you... Paul's trying to put it as nice as possible.
No, I think you were different. I think there are thoughts that you have when you ask that question this year. I think you've had thoughts that you never have had previous years.
Yeah, I think that's...
So...
Yeah, that's maybe what I was trying to clarify, but...
Yeah.
I think it's hard... I think the hardest part of this question is definitely... I've had too many years. I don't...
Are you just starting over? This is the 2002 just started over again, so you're not different because you're
what is going on?
You just
right
reset
now?
to 2002. Yeah.
I just don't. Okay, so I think I was talking to somebody, a youth-ish person. And they were talking about how hard it is to change and being diligent about changing kind of their behaviors and their mentalities and things. And I told him, because he was there, I think he was still pretty sure he's still under 20. And so I told him, now is the time that your habits in your brain is the easiest to change. If you don't, what you can do is you can train yourself to suppress some of that, but then it comes back. And so I think when you ask how am I different this year than last year, or than a year ago, or how have I changed in the last year, a lot of myself just sees it as revolutions of did pretty good at the home front this time, or this last year, and then so now I got to do better at work, or like, or I whatever dealt really poorly with selfishness last year, so now and it focuses, or it just kind of manipulates it around, and it's harder to determine. I guess it's harder for me to like think on a timeline with that stuff of like, when did that happen?
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't know. How am I different? You got something?
Oh man. How am I different? Yeah, I think that. I think this has been I don't know if it's a. So that's where like the continuum is a little hard. Like I can't say that like, January 1st, 2024 to now has been the change, but I can say that like becoming aware of that. I think one of the things that for me is, I think is the acceptance, maybe the realization, acceptance, embracing of that. Everything is not always going to work out like you want it to, and I feel like that's I need to explain some because there's I feel like there's the whole world just went duh, like hello.
Yeah, but you've had a year full of personal experience with that, though.
Yeah. Well, I think that, there's been a lot of change for me. Just this year I started I went back to school and in the middle of that because I'm basically making a career change. And that has a lot of things to unpack with calling and what it is that where God has me and all that. So we've got that. Of course, my wife being diagnosed with cancer. But also just having a very tough health year. Me walking through some of my, issues with the work that I'm doing and what I want to do and what I hoped I could do and all of those things. And I think like the best way to explain it, God just says, he has to walk slowly with me so I get it. But I think about 5 months ago, I had a friend ask me about the story with Jesus in the boat. Jesus does a Sermon on the Mount. He gets in the boat. He's like, "Hey, let's go to the other side." Jesus takes a nap, and as Jesus is taking a nap, as the disciples are crossing in the boat together to the other side, a storm comes up. The disciples freak out and they're like, "Jesus, don't you care? We're all gonna die. Like you're asleep, dude. Come on." And so he wakes up. And he's like, "Be still," and he stills all the waves, and calms the storm. And he's like, why did you guys have such little faith?"
Mm-hmm.
And the question my friend asked me was like, what response should the disciples had?
Mm.
How should the disciples respond to this? Like they're in the boat. The waves are lapping over. The storm is in their experience going to cause the boat to be capsized. What response should they have? Because it seems very harsh for Jesus to be like, "Ye of little faith." Like where's your faith? Like come on.
Right.
Like,
sure.
And Jesus is not really a harsh person, but sometimes he is harsh when they need to hear. He's like, "Why are you guys so afraid?" And so, what response then do you give? Like, what response is expected? Like, what would be an okay response? And I think that, so, and I just heard a sermon 2 weekends ago, I think it was now, that was at least some of that, like to highlight some of that, which was that you just go lay down with Jesus. Like Jesus is taking a nap, go take a nap too. Like there's some, but I think that's a different response than just being like, well, just lay down and die, because like you just accept the inevitable. Like this is like, oh, it's just gonna happen, and so there's actually some kind of tension there between going like, okay, I shouldn't be afraid because Jesus is with me, but I also am not just I'm not just supposed to accept whatever is going to happen to me. Like there's got to be what response am I going to give? And to me, that's the difference of like I do think that for a lot of my life I just believed that everything would work out, and has, because God's good. Things are gonna work out. I'm gonna get the car, the house, the wife, the job, the whatever that next thing is, or whatever it is I'm wanting. That I'll just get it because God is good, and I'm going to. It's just gonna happen. I don't have to, because because I love God. Good things are, God does those things for those that people that love Him. And but it is, and that's that has been something that, like with confidence, I've been able to be like, yeah, I can go, like even now, like going to get now a third degree, a second master's degree. Like it's easy for me to do that. It's easy. It's there, like, because of the situation I find myself in. It's a lot of work. I'm not saying it's not a lot of work, but I have the resources to do that, and I'm lucky to have those resources. But like, I also have the confidence, because some of that's just like this confidence. Yeah, God. I will freely talk to you. If you really want to know about it. I think you and I have talked about it a little bit, but in podcast land, you can ask me later or whatever. But I truly believe that God's directed me to do this, and so because I know I have the resources, the ability to do that, then I step out and do that. But not for a moment did I think I would fail, because it works out.
Sure.
Because I'm following Jesus, like it's gonna work. But as I've walked through this journey, there's been moment after moment where I've been like, well, what if it doesn't work? Like, yeah, I'm going to get the degree. That's not really the question. The question then is, what if the degree doesn't really matter? It doesn't get, the jobs I want don't open. The things I want to do don't become available. And now I have this degree and the debt that goes with that and the work that I put into that, and now it just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And like part of me before this year would have been like, you don't have to worry about that. God's got you, right? Mm. God's gonna make it all work out. And there has been a shifting, and I don't know where I'm going to land on this. That's where I think I'm different. Is that there's a shifting of like, yeah, he does, but it may not work out the way you want it to. Like, just my personal example. One of my things that so a year ago, almost to the day, Callie had her labrum repaired, surgically repaired. Not hip replacement, just labrum repair, but a surgery on her hip. And and that was a long conclusion to trying to make her be able to walk without pain, which she still hasn't really been able to do. And we got to, like, she had the surgery and she's doing recovery, and it was just like one tough thing after another. She gets the labrum repair, but it causes tendonitis in another tendon. She goes to get a steroid shot, and she's allergic to that steroid, so it actually causes her more pain than relief. Mm. And I can remember Easter. So our church, one of the things I love about what things that our church does is we have a 24-hour prayer time before Sunday, Easter Sunday, and we're encouraged to go and pray for an hour, and I've done that now 2 years in a row, and I love it. It's one of those spiritual experiences where Doesn't happen very often, but I literally sit down and start praying, and then Callie will come and be like, "Hey, it's time to go," and it'll feel like it was 2 seconds. Like just spending that time is just so easy and so sweet. But my prayer was like, I'm praying for healing. I'm praying for pain free. And the whole Sunday sermon, the whole series is like, yeah, I mean, Friday's bad, but Sunday's coming. Like, like your victory's coming. And then like Easter comes, a month passes, and then 5 weeks later, Callie finds out she's diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was like, that doesn't feel like Sunday.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Friday's bad, and Sunday's not better. Like,
right.
And so,
you thought that was Friday,
right? And it's like, but where's so there's a part of me that's like, but where's my Sunday then? Like, yeah, I believe God is good, and I believe that, but then I also get pulled back into things like where Paul goes, I prayed 3 times that God would take away this thorn, and we don't know what that thorn was, but I prayed 3 times that God would take away this thorn, and God was like, "My grace is enough for you." And like, so how do you balance out like the whole Jesus telling his disciples to go knock on a neighbor's door until they answer him, not because they're a good neighbor, but because they're tired of you knocking on the door, and like praying and asking God for those things. And then also like Paul being like, well, I asked, and God's like, no. Like, because I think that it's easy to fall into that, and I think I subconsciously often do fall into that, was like, I'm praying this, but the answer is yes. Like, I'm praying this, but I'm just making this vocalized between you and me, God, because we both know that you're going to answer this prayer. Like, and I don't feel like I don't ever say it that blatantly, but I think that like I can get into that as a heart posture of just like, you want the things that my heart wants, and I'm praying the right things, and why why wouldn't you? And so like one of the things one of the responses that, and so I was coming back to Jesus is asleep in the boat, right? And so the sermon was like, just go, we're called to be with Jesus. So if Jesus is taking a nap on the boat, then the safest or the best thing you can do is go take a nap on the boat with him. And if the boat capsizes, the boat capsizes. Like, but go find your peace in Jesus. And I think that for me, that's a lot of the journey that I'm different now trying to walk through and walk towards. And we talked about this a little bit. You and I have. I went to a leadership conference, and I got reintroduced to John Maxwell. And one of the things that just really stuck out to me was that there was a whole lot of things about perspective. But perspective is really both, and this is I'm not trying to downplay it. I'm just saying it is that it's kind of a mind game. Like, perspective is like, can you convince yourself to believe or to see something different? Is the glass half full or half empty? Well, it just depends on how you look at it. Well, then you're training, as you kind of talked about, like you can train your brain to think positively and say that's half full. But if you were to measure it scientifically, to take how much liquid is there, it would be just as true to say it's half empty. So then it becomes like, okay, well, which one do I want to be true? And I think that like even if God never heals, Callie or anybody that I love fully of the pain that they're in, I still want it to be true that he can. I still want to believe that he can, and that he wants to, and that even if it doesn't happen, like my perspective is that he could, and that that he still does, even if it doesn't happen now. And to me that is a perspective. But I think that like if you go back to like even just Jesus talking on the Sermon on the Mount, like he's really talking a whole lot about just your perspective on things. He's like, you've heard it said that you do this, you've heard it says love your friends. He goes, but I'm telling you, love your enemies. And he's not really changing anything, but he's actually just shifting your perspective to be like, this is how the world should be. Like you've heard it said that the world is love your friends, hate your enemies. He said, but actually the world should be love your enemies. And it's a perspective shift. And what perspective shifts do, I think, and this is what I'm trying to learn, and I think, is that they allow for hope. That if things aren't the way I want them to be now, I still have hope that God will change things and can change things. Because my perspective is that He can.
Yeah.
Versus a perspective, like you could have the other perspective. There's nothing that will change. There's nothing that will make a difference. It's not going to get any better than this. And you can live your life that way, but I would argue, and I think most people who've studied a lot of that would argue that that's not a beneficial way to live. And in fact, and it's not even, because you and I don't want to get into like this, you're manifesting something but you literally are changing the way you look at, and the way you look at things and think about things will change the way your your options on how to think, how to talk, how to speak, how to live will be changed by your perspective of what you think is possible. And that's why I think even talking about like you kind of changing is like, I think that you have a different perspective now than you've ever had before, and that just opens up a lot of different possibilities.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's important to see. I think as we wrestle through that idea of perspective and trying to see hope and trying to see what God is doing in our lives, I think, not giving into that veil of suffering, because we're looking at eternity, like
right.
Those bad things might not go away,
right?
Or decisions that you thought were right might go sideways somehow.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's still not eternity, like, and that's a really hard.
Well,
and not to negate what you're saying about like it's going to work out. Like, that's always a good hope. I mean,
right.
But I think that's the difference between having hope in your circumstances and hope in your decisions versus hope in Jesus.
Yeah.
And I don't think you were saying that.
Right.
Like, if the degree ends up being just a degree that isn't now an experience that you had, I don't think you're going to be like, well then, where's my salvation?
Right.
You know? Like, you're just going to land on, well, I guess I made a poor choice, or God will use it somehow, or whatever. Like, and so...
I think where I agree with you, and I think where I struggle, because I always like to be the other side of things too, and my brain just won't let me stop. But where I struggle is that it can feel false in the sense of that we're just moving the goalpost. So like you're like, oh yeah, God is good; He will bring good into your life. But if He doesn't do it now, don't worry, eternity He will. And if that's all we have, I'm not saying, and again, I'm not trying to embrace that, but I often I can see a cynic being that way of saying like, but I think what I think that for me is where I want to land is to be like, yeah, that may be true. Like, you are just moving the goalpost, but I'd rather believe that to be true than to believe the opposite. Mm-hmm. Like at some place, my hope is that, He will make it all right. Mm-hmm. Whether it's now or whether it's into eternity, and I think the difference is, and I think what you would say and what you kind of pointed at too is like, the difference is Jesus doesn't say that He'll fix everything. In fact, He actually is like, you're gonna have trouble. Like, He doesn't say He'll fix everything in the now.
Right.
but I do think like that brings me back to like being in the boat with them and then being like, why are you so afraid? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like you're in the now. Yeah, it seems stormy. Yeah, it seems like, but why? Why are you afraid? Like, find peace and finding that peace, but having that perspective that's like, no, I'm okay. I mean, which again is not even like I don't want to try to lie to myself. Like I don't want to pretend to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's why I think like finding perspective and like figuring out how to do that is what I think is where I find my difference is because I don't want to just be like, oh, it'll all work out because things just work out, but rather like it'll all work out because God is still in control. No matter what circumstances I walk through, whether they even be the valley of the shadow of death, He's with me. And it may not look like pain free. It may not look like job opening or using next step doors, so amazing and all that kind of stuff. It may look like disappointment, but will my perspective still allow me to say I'm walking in this idea that Jesus is redeeming? And I think that to me is like where I struggle is I don't want to just be like this false kind of like, oh no, I'm fine. Like to find the balance, I guess, of like I want to acknowledge that this is hard, or I want to acknowledge that this is evil. I want to acknowledge that this is bad. I want to acknowledge that this is not what we want, and I want to acknowledge that God can bring and push us to to the place where we want this and all this kind of. But I don't. But I want the perspective that says, I'm going to acknowledge both the reality, the difficulties. There's a thorn in my flesh, as Paul had said, that God could remove it, but maybe he will choose not to, and that's okay. And that God is still good, whether He moves that flesh or not, move that thorn in the flesh or not, and to not just be like the what I think of the opposite or the overside of that is like everything is good. Everything is good.
Sure.
And I think that for me is I think the balance to find, because it's so easy to to even I think even put God to the test of being like, all right, God, let's see what you're gonna do. Like,
right.
Which I want to say with anticipation because my perspective says that He's gonna be at work and doing things, but not in a way of testing of like, hey, prove to me that you're really good.
Well, and even I mean, what's coming to my mind is Paul's to live as Christ and to die as gain perspective. Yeah. Because if you follow just Christ's life, He was able to walk around for 3 years and do miracles.
Yeah.
And astounding miracles.
Right.
I mean, like life-changing miracles for people. He had some really great high points.
Yeah.
That culminated on a cross. Like
yeah,
not a great high point.
Right.
So I think, what I hear you saying is just that struggle to try and keep that perspective the same of whatever the circumstance, regardless of whose decision did what to who,
right,
or what the circumstances are. What is my next step? And how do I take that next step with Jesus?
Yeah.
And how do I honor Him in a very true way? And that's not... And I think what that perspective does is it gets rid of the options of hope is your salvation, or pain-free is your salvation, or whatever the circumstance is, whatever the rainbow is over that circumstance,
right,
that you could see, oh, this could work out like this.
Yeah.
That's still not your ultimate goal, And so that's what I hear from your
right.
I mean, that's the challenge of the Christian life, right? Trying to keep that perspective correct.
Right. Yeah, and to I think in some ways to not pretend like evil isn't evil. Like, um, and to correctly, maybe even correctly discern that which is evil and that which is not. Like, because inconvenience things to us. It feels like a lot of times in people as being in America and being in such a comfortable place, like inconvenient stuff. Sometimes we're like, oh, that's the devil, and it's like that's just a minor inconvenience. Like, but to really be like, you know, there is, even just to think about sickness. And how random that it can be, and to go. There's no. So, like even just in my wife's case, there's just no genetic thing that would say that she would be more predisposed than anybody else. There's not even that like, oh. Well, it's it's in your genes. It's there's something that makes it, that somehow differentiates it from just chance. Your body. You just drew a short straw. Like, and that's where we'll get. I don't really want to walk into sovereignty and that, because it's too long of a conversation. But like this idea of like, oh well, no, God allowed it, God planned it. Those are all Christian choices that, and I don't want to talk through them. So, but to realize, like, to both hold in both hands to say, this is not like Jesus. Jesus goes, Lazarus dies, right? He's sick. He seems to hesitate to even go. Lazarus dies, and he weeps because he dies, even though he knows. I think he knows what's like. He's kind of got an idea of what's going to happen. Like he knows that, and even if Lazarus has died on the earth, he's like, yeah, it's not the end of things. And but the pain that he experiences, and that his loved ones, Mary particularly experiences with this, like causes him to hurt. And so I think it's to on one hand to be like, the whole earth is groaning. Well, Romans says that, right? The whole earth is like, we don't like this. We don't want this. But to realize that for us to be the people that we need to be, like we go through these things. And to correctly go, that's not something God wants, or like that's not, even if you can even say that, but to have the perspective that says God will either help me walk through this by removing it, B, giving me the strength to walk through it, or C, just giving me grace. I like to have that, to not pretend like it's like, oh, this is a good thing. This is to find that balance of saying, what is it what then, God, are you wanting me to learn? What are you teaching me? What are you showing me? Who are you making me in this? Like, I think that alongside that line is the idea of failure. And I think that I think Christianity, well, my brand of Christianity, I would say, the life I've experienced in Christianity has really buffered ourselves from failure. We don't really talk about failure. We don't really embrace failure. I mean, most of the times failure is somebody's moral failure, and we're kicking them out of the church, or they're losing their pastorate. Like, that's when we talk about that idea of failing. But I think there's room to be like, I will probably will again fail.
Yeah.
And and the reason I will is because I'm willing to risk. And I think that has a lot, that perspective then of like, I have a perspective that says that I can do these things. I'm willing to take this risk because of God's with me, God's for me, so I'm going to risk. But there's also, there's opportunity that I fail. Anecdotally and historically, as far as legendarily, as far as we know, most of Jesus' disciples were martyred. Mm-hmm. We would consider them probably not super successful as far as concluding their lives, and in today's world. So I think that has a lot to do, like the hope is that I would risk something big enough that I could fail.
Yeah.
And to be willing to risk that, knowing that God is with me, whether that succeeds or not. But being willing to risk a failure, because that's what I feel like God's calling us to do, or calling me to do.
Sure.
And not just, if we go there, then like the flip side of that, which I think we've talked a lot about before, so I don't want to go to, but if God wants it to happen, He'll make it, like it'll be successful.
Yeah.
But
well, I think once we start talking about failure, we could go a lot of different directions on that, but
yeah,
I think one of the things I'm thinking about is the idea of that the idea of failure in itself is a perspective.
Mm.
Just what does that mean to you? Because I think I would agree that Christian circles tend to avoid conversations about whatever earthly failure, but I think all people, go to any sports gym in the country, and failure is a bad deal. That you fail, you shrug it off, you get up, you do it again.
Right.
And so, because you're not going to do it again.
Right.
And so I think some of that might be American culture, or maybe even just human culture of, we don't really like to talk about failure because it's whatever. But I think it's important there again even to define what that even means. Not necessarily like every minute of every day, but if you're gonna, because I fail every day. If we're gonna do the overarching what's important, yep, I fail every day, and so I'm pretty experienced at it. What does that mean, though? What does that mean? So, there's grace in it.
Yeah.
And so I know that I can chalk it up to, and there again, it's perspective shifting in the way of, I can chalk it up to, okay, I just fail every day and that's who I am. So you get to accept me like that.
Right.
Or I could understand that my life is so fluid all the way until I meet Christ that failure was just a learning opportunity. And it's not just like a mind game. It's because I know that my home is heaven, because I know that my home is with Christ. he's asking me to be smart with my finances and make smart decisions, and so he's not asking me to be flippant and just fail at every opportunity I can.
Sure.
But he's also standing there saying, try it.
Yeah.
Just try it.
Well, and you asked me this question in the car ride over here. So we're full circle, come back to this.
All right.
There seems to be, man, and this is not theologically well thought out, so please feel free to crucify me about that, but there seems to be, and for some of us, and maybe for all of us, that God, that here on earth is a place where we learn and learn more and more about what it means to follow Jesus. And so your question was, how come God, I think a more short junior high or elementary way to phrase it is, how come when we get saved, God doesn't just like transport us to heaven? Like, why don't we just we're in heaven?
Sure.
So that idea of the question you said was, why does it take so long for us to learn the gospel, or why does it take so long for us to understand the gospel? And and I think that there at least is some aspect to us being here, like the earth is the place, not perfection necessarily, but the place where we learn what it means to live the gospel. And that's important for God, and not that I know the exact reasons why, but that's important for us to learn. And
sure.
And I think that a part of that is that perspective that that involves taking risk and taking journeys and trying things that are outside. And I think even Jesus had his disciples do it. I mean, Jesus talks about it in a different way, but he's like, if you go to a town and they reject you, I mean, which we would, in today's language, we would call that a failure. Like you weren't able to preach the good news or speak to anybody. He's like, shake the dust off your feet and go somewhere else. Even Jesus' disciples weren't successful at 100% of the places that he. Jesus wasn't successful at 100 of the places that he went. But I think that we do have, and I think there's a lot of ego. For me, like I don't want to push this on anybody else. I'll just say for me, there's a lot of ego of like, oh, I'm a successful person. I know what I've got it together. I know the plans. I know how to make it happen. There's a great line. One of my favorite artists named Ross King, he writes a book. He writes a song, and there's a great line. It's called "All My Heroes Are Underdogs," and he writes a line about. It basically says, I go through my life thinking that I am facing Goliath, but I've never considered if I was the one who was the giant to someone else. And because most of the time I wasn't like David, because the odds were for me. And it's just a great perspective shifting thing of being like, yeah, most of the things that I do, like I've had a pretty blessed and charmed and great life because the odds were for me. Like I was gifted with talents and social cues and status and that home life, those type of things that made it easy for me to be successful in the things that I wanted to be successful in. Nothing wrong with that. Not even, but it also makes it, I think, then, and this is where I come back to like the perspective, but also just seeking out ways. Like and not in a blatant, not in like some kind of like flippant way of being like, wow, let's go see how much we could risk. Like, let's go see how much we could fail. Like, let's see how let's see how far we can. That's not the question either. But the question is, like, and I feel like we circle back into this because I think these are some of the same questions that you're asking. But is like, okay, if God asked me to do something different, or be different, or pursue something different, how willing am I, at the age of 44, established where I'm at,
right,
to say yes?
Yeah.
And then the flip side of that is, because we are both guilty of this, from working and being friends for as long as we have, sometimes I'm just like, yeah, different sounds great. Let's just go do let's go do different.
Let's try. Let's go.
Versus be faithful.
Yeah. And I think I'm gonna, so I guess where my head is I'm circling back to my question of, so you put it so I asked the question of, why does God give us so much time with the gospel?
Yeah.
As far as like, I mean, granted, not everybody. So some people get it at their end of the life or whatever. Or some people don't get time to get it at all. But for those of us that get the gospel and spend a lifetime pursuing it, I think I was wrestling through individual things, like why not me as an individual, but why does a person get so much time with the gospel? And I don't know if that's even the right perspective. And so I think one of the biggest reasons we get enough time is for the body. I think one of the biggest reasons that we get enough wrestle time is so people can see his strength through my weaknesses. It's so people can watch me fail and see that that's not my salvation. It's people that can see me succeed and
see that that's not your salvation.
See that that's still not my success. Like it's not. It's not for me. The time isn't actually for me. It's to remind us that there's a bigger thing going on all the time. And so I don't know. I've just been wrestling through that question in my head for me a little bit of like, and maybe because the world is crazy, and so I just keep asking myself, how much longer do we have to be here? Like, can we just go home?
Yeah.
Come on, Left Behind. Be right. Let's go. Come on.
Well, that actually triggered another thought in me of like another song that I really like, and it's by Rich Mullins on his Lost album that he didn't get to produce because he died in Illinois in a car accident. But he writes this lyric. He writes a song, and the chorus goes, "Jesus, write me into your story." And I think what I love about that perspective is kind of what you were talking about. Is a lot of times when you think about like, I'm here for me, like I'm the main character. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll use some today's lingo, man. We're gonna be popular with the kids. Mm-hmm. Main character energy, right? Like this is all about me. Mm-hmm. And I think that it is that perspective that's hard to maintain of like, all right, Jesus, write me into your story. And I think it's because like we want, all of us, most of us want to be the hero of the story, the main character, the person the story is about. we want to be the Moses or the Paul or the Jesus of the story, the one that's doing all the most important things.
Even if we don't admit it. Like, I would argue, even if our personality is somebody that's likes the background, likes the support roles, and that's just because that might be where you like to serve or where you like to hide or where you like to live, that mentality can still creep into that space.
Yeah.
Just to, I don't know.
No, and I think that's constant. I think that's why that's like constant thing. And even say go back to the Sermon on the Mount, it's Jesus is saying this is not about you. So, because that is our tendency. Whether it's I serve from the shadow, which is fine, that's great, but we still have that tendency to be like, okay, well, if somebody slaps you in the face, you turn the other cheek. Why? Because it's not about you getting your revenge. It's not about you getting your justice. If somebody asks you to walk a mile, you walk another mile. Why? Because it's not about your inconvenience. It's about you serving and showing somebody what it means to love them and to walk with them and being like, I'll do this. It's these very. It's these things that take us away from that self that actually says back to what I think Paul talks about in Corinthians, where he's like, you're not the eye. You're not the eye of the body. Maybe you're a hand, but maybe you're not even the hand. Maybe you're the spleen. But you're still part of the body.
Yeah.
But I think the idea that he even I think writes a little bit into that, and that we don't we want to do good for God, and I don't think that's a bad desire, but to be like, okay, God, how do I fit into your story, and where do I fit, and not as the main character, it's not all about me, and I think that's just so hard to work with, because I think that it's easy. This is what I found. Working in and I don't work in a secular place because I work for a Christian organization, but I work in a secular type job that's shrouded in Christianity. So let's call it like that. And what I found was, it was a lot easier to lift God's name up when my name was also being lifted up, but it was harder to see to work in the background, to see God moving and doing things, whether or not I got recognition or not. It's just hard. And there is that, and that's still something I struggle with today. There's this whole attitude by David when he's the king, that he's even before he becomes king, he has a chance to kill Saul. He's like, I'm not going to do it because that's God's anointed. That's not me. I ain't going to kill him. Okay. David becomes king. His son rebels against him. David goes, I guess I'm not king anymore because God's allowing my son to rebel against me. He flees. And of course, then that rebellion ends. David comes back to be king. But he held the kingship in such a loose grip to say, I'm not gonna, when he was anointed as a child, by rights he was the next king. But he waited 20 or 30 years or however long you waited, to be king. Imagine what that would be like for us today. To be you're king, you're anointed, you got this thing you got to do, but not yet. In fact, you're gonna get persecuted, and you're gonna get driven to the wilderness, and you're gonna be, suffer for years, and then you'll get to do that thing at my mercy, at my pleasure, and then you're gonna possibly might lose it.
Yeah.
Because again, you didn't get it. I gave it to you. And to think about how hard that is for us to think about things like our ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not yours.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not holding on to that. Like,
Yeah.
and I think, like, for you, like,
well, and even the things that David wanted to do, like build the temple, et cetera, God was like, nah,
yeah,
you're just king for now. I mean, just keep her going.
yeah. Like for you as a parent, like, like to even be like, those are your kids, but they're not yours.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's becoming more and more apparent the older they get. Not my kids. They're not my kids.
In fact, I don't claim them at all anymore. Thank you very much.
That's right.
You're not mine. I've turned you over to God. Good luck.
You are.
But so much, like, to be like, I mean, it's such a, it feels so counter culture, everything I've learned about leadership and developing organizations and things like that, to be like David, to be like, oh, I guess I'm not king anymore because my son's rebelled. I'm not going to go fight my son. Like, to be like, if God wants me to be king, he'll make me king. And to have such that perspective, because David could have fought. It's not that David couldn't have. David, even at an older age, he probably could have whipped a whole bunch of those boys. Like, I mean, like, like he had the power. He didn't just give up and abdicate because he was like, well, I couldn't win this. He's like, I refuse to fight if this is what God's doing. So if God wants me to be king, like, I'll have the patience. Like, and that was like he learned that. I refuse to kill King Saul. Because when God wants me to be king, he'll put me into being king. And when God wants to take it away, he'll take it away. And it won't matter what I do. And to have that perspective is so hard.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a hard thing about interpreting David's life too.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to dissect where was David wrong.
Yeah. Well, probably the adultery and the murder thing. Like, I'm gonna go down.
I mean, as far as
I'm gonna say he was wrong there.
Okay, well, all right, way to incorporate this podcast into a 7-hour podcast. But I mean, what I was saying is
that's my vote. Okay, sorry.
With
go on.
Absalom.
Yeah.
I mean, he obviously had some. I mean, there could be the perspective of he just made some parental mistakes.
Sure.
And so, and arguably you can look at his life or all the stories of him being a dad, and because there's not that many of them,
right?
And you can point to things that are gaps.
Yeah.
But I think that's all interpretive and perspective, and it's hard to really like. I mean, that's the beauty of the gospel, right? Of even the entirety of the Bible. Of look, we can bring up a topic. I can use David's life to bring up adultery.
Right.
I can use David's life to bring up.
Yeah.
Being too busy to parent your kids.
Yeah.
I can bring up. I can bring up topics, but then to get down to the like nuts and bolts of life, that takes more life on life.
Yeah.
Conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, granted, the New Testament allows us to get a little bit more specific on how to do things. I think the Old Testament is a great foundation, and then the New Testament gives us a little bit more heart issues and how to deal with that. But
yeah.
I think what makes it a living scalpel. I mean, what makes the Bible a living scalpel is when believers can have that Holy Spirit inspired conversation together with it.
Yeah.
And come to like these kind of ideas of it's just having the right perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think somebody could listen to this whole podcast and say, well, see, you guys are just deluding yourselves. You guys just took the Jesus pill and are, I mean, that's...
Yes, I have.
Okay. I mean, true, I guess. But that's, I mean...
Yeah.
But I think there's an experience level that complements what I'm reading in the Bible.
Well, like at the end of the day, and that's what I like. This is where I get back to like perspective, like being positive about things and having an optimistic outlook on things. It's like measurably, the same amount of liquid is in that glass. You know, at the end of the day, I'd rather live in such a way that what Jesus says about life is true and that He is truth, even if it's not and that may be again moving the goalpost kind of thing, but I'd rather look at the glass and say it's half full. I'd rather look at the world and say, we need to love rather than hate. We need to find grace and forgiveness. We need to find a creator. We need to find a I'd rather believe all that to be true. Even at the end of the day, it's not true because I see what it does. And then, as you said, I've experienced a truth and experienced a relationship that's different. But at the end of the day, you could also just be like, you placeboing yourself into believing something. Like psychologically, humans have that somewhat of that ability. But I think that when I look back on my life, what I want to do is I want to live in such a way that reflects kind of, and that's where I get into like what I was talking about with David, of like this idea of I want to find the places where I need to be bold and strong. He goes and fights Goliath, right? I mean, obviously that's a bold and strong move there. And where I need to be submissive and compliant, and for in this case, like when I'm going to be king, like I've been anointed king.
You're never going to be king.
Well,
sorry, buddy.
I've been anointed king, and yet the first thing I do directly after being anointed king is go back to the shepherds, go back to the lowly, filled with the sheep, and the sheep don't care.
Right.
They don't care that I've been anointed king. Yeah. My family doesn't believe, So, but to find those places, and I think that's like discernment. I think that's the difficult thing. But I do think that, like at the end of the day, I'd rather live in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount world, and I'd rather bring about that world with my life, the things I do, the things I say, the things I believe, than any other kind of world.
Yeah.
And even if that's a Jesus pill,
right?
Like, I don't believe that it is, and and you don't either. But even if it is,
I think naysayers can say nay. I mean, they've been doing it forever.
Oh yeah,
right. I mean,
they will. Yeah,
it's what the serpent did to Eve.
Yep.
Of like, did God really say? And so, I think we can do that. I mean, I don't allow that to take too much of my brain time of like, how is this going to be interpreted by somebody else? Like, I don't care because...
I mean, we put so much planning and thought into this. It shows how we're very concerned about how it's being interpreted. But yeah.
But at the same time, there's reasons. There's reasons that I believe.
Right.
And it's not just experiential. It's not just because I saw angels or some vision or whatever, which I've never seen an angel. But,
yeah.
I mean, it's not because of any experiences. my experiences complement and solidify what I read and what I understand the Bible to tell me is true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I agree with it. Like, so why wouldn't we step into every situation with hope and redemption in mind?
Right.
Look, if God can reconcile my ugly self to Him, then whatever situation I step into, He can reconcile and redeem and give grace in those moments. And I think if we have the mentality that you're talking about and that perspective, I think that gives us opportunity to be the agents of what He uses.
The possibilities, when you live a perspective of hope, I think it just opens up different possibilities in how you can act, respond, speak, say, think, and I think that's what changes our world. It just changes our world, and it changes our lives, because when I live in a certain way and I limit my responses and I change my responses, it changes my life. And so there's a very almost super spiritual but also very reality based kind of thing. Like, if I think that, the possibility is that I might do this, so I try this, versus if I'm like, nope, that can't happen, so I don't try this. Like, that's just a very real tangible thing of like how hope can say, like, yeah, there's a possibility because I have hope. I'm gonna go one way than if I didn't have hope. And so there's a very real world application. It happens in the real world, but it's also this very spiritual thing of the reason I have hope is because of what I know. But that's faith, and we all have faith in something. Like, I mean, even if you say I'm an atheist, well, then that takes a lot of faith, because you believe that, so much of the world now exists because of chance, random chance. And if you look at the random chance, how crazy statistically it is that the world is exactly as it is, maybe, but you have faith in that. You have to have faith that that's true.
Sure. Yeah.
It's faith, because none of us know for sure.
Right.
And because if that is just proof, then if we all knew for sure, there'd be no reason to doubt or believe.
Yeah.
That's we're like at almost 2 hours here. So,
all right, 2 hours just flew by. That's how we roll.
So let's end this with something fun. If your life was going to be a Christmas movie, what would you want which movie would you want your life to be? Any Christmas movie you could be, which movie would you want your life to be?
Oh, my wife and daughter were just watching one called, it was very Hallmarky.
Uh-oh. And why?
Oh, it was called Hot Something. It was funny.
Oh, I really thought you were going to say Die Hard.
Die Hard and Lethal Weapon, both valid Christmas movies. Both valid Christmas movies. Hot Frosty.
Hot Frosty. Okay.
Yep, I'm going Hot Frosty. Okay, so Hot Frosty is Frosty the Snowman story. Only Frosty becomes a real person.
Oh.
Only one girl, obviously, knows this, but he is a handsome guy.
Okay.
And so, I don't know. It's just really interesting. So, and because he's
So you want to live in a world where there may be people who are actually snowmen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounded awesome. Because he was hot all the time. And he had profuse sweat dripping off his body all the time. I don't even know how it ended. I didn't watch a lot of that movie, but it was hilarious to know that there would be snowmen walking around.
Just being like, hey, could we turn the heat down? Come on, guys. Come on.
I gotta step outside. Would just be sweet.
Apparently the snowmen are also like New York.
Oh, he was super handy too. All he needed to do is watch a YouTube video or something, and he could fix anything.
Yeah, apparently our snowmen are all New York City work construction work. It's so hot in here. Come on now.
Yeah, I don't really know.
I gotta step
It was
outside
awesome.
for this. Okay.
So if you're gonna
All
ask
right.
me what my Christmas movie is currently, that's
Okay.
it.
All right.
That's it.
That's the one you want your world to be like.
Yeah, because if I wanted my world to be like Die Hard or Lethal Weapon, that would be terrifying.
You might say that our world may already be that. Like it might already be like that. So, Christmas movie. Which one do I want to go with? I'm gonna have to say, the Muppet Christmas Carol.
Ooh,
So,
okay, that's a good one.
I just because it'd be fun to have Muppets in your world
Yeah, that's true.
all the time.
Muppets are really awesome.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, Jim, thanks for joining me. Thank you guys for listening. If you're still here, maybe one or
Who knows
two
how many
you
of you listened
all the
this
way
time.
through that.
All 7 of you.
Way less funny than we have been in the past, probably, but that's okay. This is the last one of this year, and then hey, maybe January.
Yeah, we'll
do it
keep
again.
going.
Yeah. Yeah. Merry Christmas to you guys, and we'll see you in the new year.
There you go. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And all the other things that are joyous.
I hate happiness.